Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us at the Seattle Angel Conference workshop. We are in round 18 of the Seattle Angel Conference. The application deadline for companies to participate is September 3rd. We do this workshop series to try to drive a conversation about how to be effective community and your process of building your startup. My name is John Seacrest, and I run the Seattle Angel Conference. We're running workshops out of the meetup.com/Seattle-Angel group. You'll notice on the side that there's a participant list and a chat list. So if you have questions, feel free to post things into the chat. We have some continuing interesting workshops that'll happen next week as well. So would urge you to engage in those as well. Today we have Alex Wayman, who is doing social media for Amazon. He's going to talk a little bit about the process of doing social media in a way that is an effective pathway. Since we know that startups need to understand who their customers are and how to talk to them, this is really a fundamental skill that we're looking for in early startups. Alex, could you turn on your mic and your camera, please? Cool.
Yeah,
thanks so much.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. So if you would give them a little deeper background and then take it away, I'll get off stage.
Yeah, for sure. Let me just see, how do I got to share my screen, right? One sec. Okay, I'm just gonna do it like this then. Can you guys see the presentation?
Yeah, that looks great. And if people want to make the screen bigger, they can just double click on one of the images and it'll take up full screen. So you can either look at Alex's big mug or you can look at the slides separately in big view if you want.
Great. Thanks, John. Yeah, well, hey, thank you everybody for being here. I'm really excited to be able to speak with you today. It's really an honor, honestly. Thank you, John, too, and Seattle Angel for putting this event together. They do a lot of really great events. I actually met John through the Open Coffee that they do every single Tuesday morning at 8:30 a.m. Totally free event. That's where I met John, and that's how I got involved with this group. And I'm really thankful to be able to have grown with them and just learn so much from this community. So yeah, my name is Alex Wayman. Today I'm going to be talking about marketing for social media, how to write copy that converts, right? How do you get the post that you make on social media in front of more people, and how do you get them to take some sort of action, right? Wherever you want to point them to. That's the intent behind, the workshop. And for some reason I can't see the chat when I'm presenting, but I do have my my Twitter open. So if anybody is active on Twitter, feel free to tweet at me. My username is right there above my name on the slide. As well as a hashtag if you want to use that, SMCopy2020. I'll be keeping an eye on that. Throughout the presentation, we'll have a couple small group type workshop, smaller workshop like guiding things that we'll be doing. And during that time, I'll check the posts and be able to incorporate some of that in the presentation.
I'll be tracking the chat, and I'll come on stage if there's something that needs to be responded to directly. Okay,
sounds good to me. Okay, let's talk about social media. Everyone's online. I think it's a no-brainer, right? When I was putting this together, I was thinking about how maybe I should have all of these elaborate, graphs and charts showing how traffic has increased, but I don't really want to waste your time with that. I think it's kind of a no-brainer that everybody's online. With the pandemic, with remote work culture, it's just everybody's online. And some of those examples are, they're on social media, newsletters, blogs, emails, shopping websites, and virtual conferences just like this, right? So there's an immense opportunity for us to engage with them. And the question is, how do we do that, for a startup, for maybe a brand that has no, upfront visibility? How do we get that in front of more people? Now, before I get into the actual slides, I just want to tell you about myself because, personally, I hate doing credential type slides like this, but I want you to know that I'm not just some random dude that John found somewhere online. I do have some experience with this. So I started a blog in 2018 called Millennial Moderator. Right now we're at about 10,000 monthly readers. and I have a team of, I think, 33 guest writers from around the world. So we write a lot of content. I personally write between 5,000 to 10,000 words a week between all the posts, between all of the articles, blogs, newsletters, stuff like that. A lot of writing. I graduated from UW. I think I saw in the small tables there were a few people from UW as well. So I went to UW, got my degree in tech innovation management, which basically says that I know how to use technology, or I have experience with using technology in innovative ways to get certain results for business purposes. Like John mentioned, I work for Amazon Web Services. I work on the Twitter support team. And the main thing I've taken away from working with a big corporation on social media is the importance of being clear in messaging, right? We get a lot of different types of responses that we have to engage with, and being clear and being transparent and directing people to whatever that conversion goal is. Do you want them to go to your website, to a document page, to a sign up page, right? The way you say that really does matter. People interpret messages differently. And so that's going to be one of the things I'm bringing to this presentation. I also do freelance social media. So I do it for 10 brands total, currently, 10 different social media brands, companies, businesses, startups, music brands, each of which have their own social media channels. So I create a lot of assets, and I work on building communities around these brands. So I have experience in just a large volume of doing this, right? And then I personally have just a creative background in music. And the only reason I put this in here is because I want you guys to know that while this is a very serious topic for me, I like to be kind of like low key and chill in my presentations. So if I start going on a weird tangent or a rant, I'm just enjoying myself. So humor me if I do something weird like that. So before we get into the presentation, just a quick overview. Take some notes if that's your thing. There will be Q&A at the end. I timed this presentation, so there should be a chance for us to bring some people up to ask questions, whether it's about your own business, your own startup. I'm open to answering those questions then. Or like I mentioned before, ask me on Twitter. Use that hashtag. My username is @myfirstandlastname. So feel free to tweet at me. There will also be a written version of this presentation on my blog. I stayed up till 3 or 4 a.m. last night writing a blog post about this whole presentation, and I'll share the link to that in the chat after we're done. So, if you don't want to take notes, there will be a blog post that you can read that goes over all this stuff too. I will upload this to SlideShare probably within a week after this presentation's done. And then there will be a full recap of this workshop video on the Seattle Angel YouTube channel. Again, hopefully within the next week. So I think I posted a link to the Seattle Angel upcoming events. In there, you can find links to the website, to the YouTube channel, and keep up with all that stuff. And then at the end of this, I will be giving away a free social media posting guide. So if you are wondering how to create the perfect social media post, right? I've created a little template of things that you can go through and check off, like, did I include this? Is that included? Is this formatted correctly, right? So I'll give that away for free at the end as well. It's just a downloadable PDF that I created. And I also will be doing a free feedback form. So at the end of this, if you go out and make a post from your brand account, from your business account, from your personal account, you can let me know your post. It'll be a form where you just include the link to it, and I'll go check it out. I'll give you my feedback, and I'll give you a repost. I'll repost your tweet, your Facebook post, your Instagram post, LinkedIn, whatever you want to post on. So some free promo for you as well. Okay, so here's what we're going to be talking about today. How to get people to click our stuff with intent, right? How to understand how the nature of posting copy on social media works, and how we can optimize for conversions, how we can get people to go from finding our tweet amongst the sea of noise and actually feeling like they want to click the link and going to your website or to your newsletter or whatever you're pointing them to. So there's two main sections. The first is what I call the 1 second funnel, which is just a gimmicky name I gave it. Basically, marketing on social media is very fast paced. You have to get people's attention quickly. You have to give them value quickly, and you have to get them to convert quickly. And that happens more or less within a second of them coming across your post. So I'm going to break down the steps of how a post is digested, and then how we can optimize our posts for getting better conversions. And then I will go through what I call secret stuff, which is just tips and strategies that I found to be effective for getting better conversions, little one-off tricks that I've just found to be useful. So let's talk about real quick the history of digital marketing and any kind of virtual marketing, right? Marketing in the 1950s. Now, I'm obviously personally not old enough to remember this. If anyone here is, congratulations, that's awesome. But back in the day, you know, when we're talking about digital marketing or digital advertising, we would think about the television, right? The TV, where you had maybe 3 channels total and you couldn't skip the advertisements. You had to sit through them. But even back then, you know, the advertisements were glamorized. It was like, you know, this TV show is brought to you by Kellogg's cereal, or it's brought to you by Ford Motor Company, right? It was almost like celebrated, the advertisements, and people had to sit through them and they had to pay attention to the full advertisement. Today, obviously that's a lot different, right? Everything today is on demand, meaning people can skip through advertisements in, you know, 3, 2, 1, right? With the YouTube skipping algorithm, or just even on Twitter, if they see a post they don't like, they just swipe on, right? That is makes it very competitive for, you know, any kind of posting that has intent, right? The intent to convert somebody to take an action. But because we know that there is this on-demand nature, there are things that we can do to, you know, improve our possibilities of getting conversions, which is basically what I've dubbed the 1-second funnel. Social media is noisy. Your copy needs to cut through the noise immediately with value. And I've broken down this funnel into 4 distinct steps. The first one is you have to catch people's visual attention. You have to stand out from the noise. There's that millisecond, you know, of time where somebody will see a post or they won't, or they'll keep scrolling through the feed, right? So what about a post gets people's visual attention, makes them want to just read more about what they're saying? Then we have to deliver immediate, clear value. And this is a really interesting topic that we'll go into, but a hint, it's not about what you want to say. And I'll explain that when we get to it. The third part of the funnel is to invoke a premeditated reaction, right? And this is where that conversion happens. This is where you've already made the decision of, I want this person to go to my newsletter or go to my website to sign up for something. Or maybe it's to have them like a post or share a post or comment on a post, right? And then the last one, and this is probably what I think is the most important, is to empower them to share. Because I believe in the scaling factor, right? If you want to get more results, you have to scale upwards. And if you can optimize your post for shareability, then you are putting yourself in a position to get more attention and traffic. And people share for selfish reasons. And that's a really interesting realization when I came across that. And I'll break that down further as we get into it. So let's start with the first one, catch their visual attention, how to stand out from the noise in the feed. Formatting matters. Formatting matters with your posts. You have to be clear, but you also have to be interesting. Let's take a look at 2 examples here. These are just 2 random posts that I pulled from Twitter in this case for 2 different companies, obviously one a little more established than the other. But again, we're looking at the visual aspect of posting, right? How do we make our posts stand out in the feed? The one on the left, right, is from a startup entrepreneur type group that if you just look at it, it's honestly pretty disgusting. Like I don't want to read past the first line, right? It's choppy. There's a bunch of weird hashtags. They're using brackets, which is weird. They're using acronyms. Some words are capital. It's not a good experience. And if I'm scrolling through my feed and, you know, the algorithm suggested this post to appear for me, I'm not going to read through that, right? And there's a reason why that post won't convert. So from a visual perspective, this first post is not very effective. The second post, obviously, you know, from Alexa, from Amazon, again, from a purely visual perspective, this post gets people's attention, right? Because it's just interesting. It's outlandish. It's weird. It's funny. They're using an emoji. They're using this house they've built. They formatted their text to, you know, kind of cascade down the house. And there's even a clear call to action at the end. They're asking people to comment, right? So from a visual perspective, this is a great way to get people's attention. So a little bit more of the nitty-gritty of what you can do to set yourself up for catching people's attention in the feed. The first one, don't abuse hashtags. I see this with a lot of startups that I work with, and I think it's almost common nature for people to think that they want to use a bunch of hashtags to get, the chances for more people to see their posts. And while part of that is true, too many hashtags looks bad. It's not visually appealing, and it's spammy. It really is. Not to mention, I don't know if you knew, but some social platforms actually ban certain hashtags. And for example, the tip on the bottom right of the slide here says it. Instagram has a list of banned hashtags, and if you use them, your posts actually won't show up in people's feeds. So just do a Google search for that if you're interested in learning more. But there are systems in place on social platforms to mitigate abuse of hashtags. So be conscious of it, but mostly be conscious of how your post appears in the feed. Secondly, use colorful language. And colorful could mean many different things, right? I put the example of Nike Just Do It in there because that is a great example of copy that is, it's their slogan, obviously, but if you study their marketing material, all their messaging is very poignant. It's very distinct. It's very simple, but yet it's still colorful, right? Like, just do it. What does that actually mean to us, right? What are we doing? What is it? What is the process? What goes into that, right? They've built the culture around their terminology. So when we're talking about getting our posts seen by more people in the feed, use colorful language, be expressive, don't make your viewer feel dumb though. Don't, try to shower them with all these complex terms because you think that you're an expert in your field, right? Set yourself up for success by just getting people's attention visually from the get-go. Another great tip is to watch for emerging trends on the platforms. So the image at the top right there is from Twitter. They recently rolled out a feature where you can record your voice and post a voice message in a tweet. And that's a picture of what it looks like in the feed, right? Platforms are doing this all the time. They're always testing new features, trying to give people more opportunity. So if you can catch on to these emerging trends and get with them sooner, you can utilize them to get people's attention more. So again, we're talking visual perspective, right? How do we get people in the feed to notice our posts when they're just going like this the whole time, right? And then lastly, explore new trends. And if you look at that copy, the text there, it's that's just like one weird way that you can write your copy to get people's attention, right? It may not be right for every brand or every business, but there are other ways to do that. You have emojis, you have paragraph spacing is a really great one to command more of that, real estate on the screen. So explore new trends yourself and figure out what you can do to stand out from the noise. And better formatting equals better engagement. Here are two examples from my blog, right? The one on the top left is a post that was just purely text, a couple hashtags, not very expressive, 103 impressions. The one on the bottom right, it was a picture, a little bit more explanation about what the picture meant. And just because of the fact that there was a picture and that it had more explanation and context to it, the impressions were doubled and there were even engagements taken. So again, when we're talking about the feed, when we're talking about standing out from the noise, we have to visually attract our community. Okay, so I want to go ahead and break us out into our tables again, just for 3 minutes to brainstorm some ideas about these three questions, right? So what are some social media posts, and advertisements are included, that have caught your attention recently? And I want you to ask yourself, why did that post catch my attention? If you can't think of one, maybe think of one from the past, or maybe think about one that would catch your attention, right? What is it about a post that catches your attention? And then I want you to brainstorm in your tables and share with each other unique ways that your business or your brand can design a post that will make it stand out in the feed. So John, if you can.
Yes, and when I get you back to your tables, if you could head up to the top table so we have at least 4 people per table, that would be great. So here we go, back to the tables. There you go. You're on mute. There you go.
Yep, I'm just going to turn my screen back on. 1 second here. Okay, great. Hopefully you guys had a chance to come up with some ideas for, in your experience, what you find to be visually appealing in posts. Again, when we're talking about the feed, it's about getting people's attention, right? So how can you get their attention?
Do you want to bring any of them up to share?
No, it's okay. At the end, we'll go through Q&A. Yeah.
Okay.
I got to get through this whole thing. So, okay. So that's the first step of the funnel, right? We've caught people's attention visually, right? We've got that millisecond of attention where they're looking at our post purely because of the fact that it's visually appealing. The second step of this process is to deliver immediate and clear value. And like I mentioned before, a hint, it's not about what you want to say, it's about what they want to hear. Social media by nature is a place of validation, right? People are looking to support their own beliefs. So approaching marketing through social media from the context of, I want you to pay attention to this because I'm saying it's important, is not the right approach. You want to pay attention to what they're talking about, to what matters to them. So study the dogmas and tell your audience what they want to hear. You know, what are the pressing topics or the pressing themes that they're paying attention to? If we're talking about attention specifically from the attention perspective, if anyone here is familiar with like the law of familiarity, right? It's that law that we notice things that we are consciously paying attention to, right? If you've ever purchased a car and, you know, you spend time researching the car, making sure it's the one you want, you buy it, you start driving it. Next thing you know, you see that car everywhere on the road. It's like everyone's driving it and you're like, what the heck? Did everybody buy this because I bought the car? Obviously not, right? It's because you're now paying attention to it. So by nature on social media, it's the very same thing. So to deliver value, we don't tell them what we think they need to hear. We tell them what they are paying attention to, what they want to hear. So here's two examples of posts on social media that illustrates this pretty well. So the one on the left is from this area agency on aging in Southwest Florida. And if you read their post, right, it says, have you seen our latest newsletter? Check it out here. Here's a link, and visit our website or sign up for the next one. Here's our hashtag. There's really no value given in that post, right? The picture is cool. I mean, it gets my attention in the feed because it's visual, but there's no value. I don't feel connected to this post whatsoever. If I'm somebody who's looking for, again, I don't even know what their company is. There's nothing told to me here, right? But I'm assuming it's some sort of retirement community. If I'm the type of person that's caring about retirement businesses, what are the things that I'm thinking about? Well, I'm probably thinking about, I want to make sure my family is taken care of. I want to make sure financially it makes sense, right? And this post doesn't serve any of that value. So there's nothing resonating here for me. So visually I may be attracted to it, but there's no value given to me that makes me want to learn more about their business. The one on the right is from SoundCloud, which is a music distribution and music streaming platform. And I chose this example because there's a very pressing theme right now in the world, but specifically also within the music industry, is the Black Lives Matter movement, right? It's a very pressing topic. And SoundCloud in this particular post is very aware of that. And they've even sculpted a lot of their content and programming about the message of how Black Lives Matter in the music industry. So their post says we'll be going live for a very important, right? They stress how important this is. A very important conversation with hashtag the show must be paused, which if you're not familiar with that, that's a hashtag that's being used by music industry members saying that the music industry must be paused in order to tackle, you know, systemic racism, right? So we're going live for this important conversation with the founders of this movement and with the global head of music of SoundCloud. Tune in Thursday, July 9th at 2 p.m. There's a link, right? So they know that the music community is focused on this topic. There's a lot of people talking about how the music industry is systemically racist, and they're addressing this and they're providing value, saying that, yes, this is an important topic and here's where you can go to our link, right? In terms of conversions, both of these posts have an agenda. The first one wants you to sign up for a newsletter. The second one wants you to attend this event. But the second one speaks to the value of what the community is paying attention to, right? And they use the hashtag, which is another great strategy, right? That's a hashtag that's trending in that particular community. So again, remember, it's not about what you want to say, it's what they want to hear. So how can you figure out what it is that they're paying attention to? Well, the first one is to study the current trending conversations, right? I truly believe that any business or any startup is a leader of a group of people, right? You're not selling a product to somebody, you're leading a community to salvation, right? You're solving a problem that they have. And so you need to become immersed in that community and understand what are their values, what are they concerned about, you know, what are they talking about? and tell them what they want to hear. Tell them what's important to them, right? If there's an important, if there's a trend that everybody's on, or maybe there's been a shift in how the particular, like a community is addressed by, the government, if there's political movements, if there's a financial crisis, whatever it is, people are talking about it, right? And your customers care about that, but you need to know specifically what it is that they care about. And then be mindful of the length. Remember, again, this is the 1 second funnel, so we only have a very short period of time to give this value to people. And a tip to get that content up front is to place everything above the fold, which is a term from blogging, if anyone here has a blog, but it applies to any kind of social media platform, any kind of newsletter. Basically, you want to put your important information first. You want to get your value up front for people. Especially on social media, a lot of platforms will actually collapse your post and only show people the first 60 to 90 characters of what you're saying. So in the 2 screenshots there, one's from Instagram, one's from Facebook, you can see that there's the option to click to see more. So if you want to read more of the post, you have to click it. But not everyone's going to do that. And people will inherently want to read just the initial section. And if you don't give the value to them, if you don't make that connection with them in that first little section, then they're going to be less inclined to want to read more, right? So I want to do another quick group breakout. I want you guys to collaborate and talk about the dogmas in your industries. So what are the things that your customers are talking about? What are the pressing concerns, or what are the trends? What are people actually discussing? And maybe if you don't know for sure, make some assumptions, and then after this, go and challenge it, right? And then answer the question, how can you add value through them? Do you, for example, completely contrast the dogma? Like, if there's this status quo that everybody thinks this is how it has to be, are you going to go in and tell them, no, that's not right, and here's why, this isn't right? Or are you going to support it, with the Black Lives Matter movement, right? It's an important topic, and companies go in and support that movement. So how do you add value through it? So what is everyone talking about in your niche, and what do they want to hear about it? John, can you help me with the breakout? All right. Hopefully you all had an opportunity to come up with some great ideas. Let me just turn on my screen share again. Okay, so hopefully you guys had a chance to talk about, what are the dogmas? What are the status quos that your particular user base is talking about? What matters to them? You have to know what matters to them. So here's what we've done so far. We figured out how to get people's visual attention, right? Again, just that millisecond of time where they're scrolling through the feed and they need to look at your post, right? Is it visually appealing? Then we've talked about how to give that value, right? How do we actually understand what it is that the community cares about? It's not what you want to say, it's what they're paying attention to. And it varies by industry, right? So there's no perfect answer, and it's always changing, which is what makes it so exciting and such a lively sort of endeavor, right? Is being in touch and in tune with your community. The third step of the process is to invoke a premeditated reaction, right? And this is where that conversion actually happens. So up until now, we've been on the defensive, right? We've been sort of tackling this question of how to get more conversions from the standpoint of how do we set ourselves up for, better conversion rates. But now we're going to switch and go to the offensive. And we're going to say that when we make a post, we have to start with our conversion goal in mind. So, what is your conversion goal? Do you want somebody to go to your website? Do you want somebody to go to your newsletter, to an event? Do you want them to sign up to you for your comedy show, right? Where do you want to point people to? And then you have to answer the question of how is your conversion goal? How is that particular action, what you want people to do, relevant to the value that you're giving in the post, which is, again, what people want to hear. And the marrying of those two is how you're going to be able to bridge and improve your conversions. So let's look at 2 more examples. Again, I chose SoundCloud again because I think they're touching on a very relevant theme today with the Black Lives Matter movement. And then the one on the left here is from a fitness startup. They're a virtual fitness startup, and they are basically conducting virtual at-home, training sessions. So if we're talking about the conversion goal, right, from the get-go of deciding where we want to point people to, If we look at the training example on the left, it's very muddy. It's very hard to tell what they're trying to get people to do. They say sign up now, right, in bold and large capital letters, but there's no clear link. The only link in that entire post is an Instagram post, an Instagram link down at the bottom. And, like if you're familiar with Instagram, an Instagram post, there's no way to engage with it other than, liking it. You can't click on another link there. So there's really no clear messaging in this. Not to mention, there's no value provided. How do I know what they're even doing? They say beginning hip hop today. What does that mean? Are they starting to play hip hop music in their classes? Are they teaching hip hop dance? I have no idea. So the conversion goal is unclear. There's very little value given here. I have no idea what to expect. And from a visual perspective, like we talked about in the first section, it's just spammed with hashtags. And in the feed, that's not going to get people's attention. So visually, there's no opportunity for this post to get engagement or conversions. Now, if we look at the one on the right, SoundCloud, they've started with their conversion goal in mind. The very first line actually is tune in tonight at 6:30 p.m. Eastern time. They're very specific about when. On our Twitch, they've tagged the page and they've even put a little finger emoji to the link where you can go to tune in tonight, right? Very spelt out, very clear compared to the one on the left, which just says sign up now and no clear direction, right? Again, with my time at Amazon, that's the biggest takeaway I've had is it's important to spell things out for people, right? Especially depending on what your community is like, the more you can spell things out that's relevant to them, the better. And then they go on, the SoundCloud page goes on to provide that value. As we continue to celebrate Black music, right? They know this is a pressing topic, and that's what their community is paying attention to. As we continue to celebrate Black music, the co-presidents of Rock Nation join us for the first installment of our series, The Journey. So the value's there. And then again, from the visual, that very first millisecond of attention, 2 large images that capture exactly, the context of what their post is about. So in terms of the full stack of a good conversion post, that's a great example. Now, let's just talk about some examples of conversion goals, right? There's a lot of different things you can point people to or tell them what to do. And some of this may be obvious to some people, but maybe this will jog some extra ideas for you. There's a ton of different things you can point people towards. For example, your newsletter. You can tell people to visit your website, right? You can tell people to follow your social media page. You can tell them to engage on a post. A great strategy is to do a giveaway through your business or brands, but require the people to like, to share, to comment, or to follow your page, right? That's still encouraging some sort of conversion, some sort of action from them. If you want people to read an article, if you want people to sign up for an event, right? How do you spell out that event? How do you put the link in there and point the arrows to it and say, this is the event, here's the link to it, it's at this time, just like the SoundCloud page did, right? Join us. Terminology, which is going to be the next slide, right? Join us for a workshop. This picture on the right is the post that I made about this very workshop. I said, join me tomorrow as we explore the power of writing effective copy for your business. Almost 50 signed up. It's going to be a great virtual event in partnership with Seattle Angel and my blog, a couple hashtags. And then again, visually, that link provides that thumbnail image that if anybody clicks it, it goes straight to the page, right? It's set up for success. That's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to optimize our posts for max conversion. Another example is feedback via a survey. If you have a survey that you want to run for your business, that's a great way. It makes people feel involved with your business. And there's so many other types of conversion goals out there. Some examples of conversion messaging, right? It's all about the context of your brand. So while SoundCloud can say tune in to this podcast because they're a music company, it makes sense. If you have a different type of business or a different type of startup, what does the messaging look like for you? There's no perfect answer, but it comes down to understanding, again, your community and understanding what they're paying attention to. So for example, join us is a great invitation. Visit our website, our page, our about page, our contact info, whatever it is, right? Click to learn more, a little more formal, but can do wonders, right? If you are providing value in a post and people are excited to learn more, click here to learn more about this. For more about this, tune in. Want to learn more, and the little arrow emoji, right? Check this out. A little more casual, maybe good for Twitter. More info here. Follow our page. And, use some emojis. Social media is a social place. People are very conscious about how, comfortable people are on the platform and how sort of entertaining they are, right? Now, of course, if you're like a banker or if you have a finance startup, maybe spamming, a bunch of emojis doesn't make sense, right? So again, it comes down to context and paying attention to, what your community is listening for. So again, be clear and concise in what people need to do. On platforms with character limits, for example, Twitter, only allows 240 characters. Facebook, you can write the world if you want. LinkedIn as well, right? The thing to remember, though, again, is that we are battling for time. It's a very short conversion process. So while you may have the opportunity to write this, 10-page novel on LinkedIn, is that going to be the most effective? Well, if you're giving the value and the community actually cares to read it, which again depends on your community base, maybe it makes sense. But what I'm saying is evaluate that and try to understand what makes the most sense. Also, people are smart, and whenever I share like the emojis and pointing arrows, some people like roll their eyes. You're right. A lot of people know how social media works. They know that they don't need an arrow pointed towards a link. But not everybody does. And depending on your industry or your community, it's important for you to step into the role of the customer and understand what you can do to make their process easier. You want them to get from point A to point B as simply as possible. And if they're confused, then it's going to lower the chances of you getting a good conversion. Also, be mindful of which platforms do and don't allow direct links in the posts. For example, Instagram, you cannot put a URL in a caption because nobody can click it. You can't actually click on it, and it looks bad visually. It just is a distracting piece of text that is not helpful to anybody. But Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, you can absolutely put the URLs right in there. It'll even populate the thumbnail image, like you can see in the TechCrunch example there. It'll populate an image that's basically just a big landing space for someone's finger to click on. Again, we're trying to get people to convert. We're trying to get people to click on something, and we're trying to give them the lowest hanging fruit to get them to do that. Then use language relevant to your target users. I've already kind of talked about this, but understand what your community is talking about. Use the hashtags that they're using. Use the terminology they're using. If you're an industry leader, you should be in touch with the norms, the social norms of what your community is talking about, right? It varies by industry, but pay attention to what people are saying. And then ultimately, again, tell them what they want to hear. That's the value add, right? And then seal the deal by pointing them towards a link to the conversion goal that speaks to the value, right? In terms of URLs, I put two examples at the top right. It's important to keep your URLs very clean and consistent and trustworthy, right? People are conscious about the links they click. So the two links, the two URLs at the top there are actually both pointing to the same thing. The millennialmoderator.com, the one on the bottom, that's my blog. The one above is just a redirect I created that points people right back to my blog. But it looks really sketchy. People don't want to click that, right? So be conscious of that. Be conscious of the way people think or the way people feel about engaging with your post, right? Are they going to be clicking on this? Does the link look safe? For a lot of SoundCloud is a very popular verified account. People trust SoundCloud. But a startup with no prior experience, people don't know what that company stands for. They don't know if it's legit or if it's a scam, right? And you owe it to yourself to set yourself up for success. So get a clean URL. And then the tip I have on the slide too is use thumbnail images for links wherever you can. So in that screenshot from TechCrunch, basically when you post a URL into Twitter, it will auto-populate an image just like that from the article or from the website, provided the article or the website supports that. Most websites do these days. But that, again, just improves the opportunity for conversions because it gives people something they can click on and it gives them a visual representation. So from, getting people's attention in the feed, we got it from the image, right? The value is given because it speaks to, that particular example, the Uber CEO and what they're talking about, right? That California shutdown may be necessary. And then it gives a clear conversion by giving this large image that people can click. Okay, I want to do another group breakout. I know we got a lot of these. I want you guys to talk about in your tables, what are the conversion goals for your startup or brand? So if you have a business, what are you trying to get people to do? Are you trying to collect newsletter subscribers? Are you trying to point them to follow a page? Are you trying to get them to take a survey for you? Are you trying to get them to buy your product from your store? You know, like what does that look like? And, you know, maybe what else could you be trying in addition to what you're doing, right? And then ask the question of what kind of language is used in your target communities. Are there any trends or are there any themes that people are discussing? Again, kind of going back to that value point. What are people talking about in your communities? Share with each other and maybe give each other some ideas. You know, again, when we're talking about dogmas, it's important to get other people's perspectives. People who aren't involved in your industry, maybe they can share some good advice. And I'll be jumping around the tables too. So John, if you can help me close this out here. Hello, everybody. Okay, let me just share my screen again. I got to do this every time. Sorry, a little bit of a hassle. Okay. So hopefully you guys had a chance to talk about, you know, what are the conversion goals for your brand? What do you want, you know, people to do through your social media channels? Is it that website? Is it that newsletter? And you've been able to figure out kind of what is the language used to get people to go there. So here's what we've done so far, overview, big picture, right? We figured out how to get people's attention from a very early millisecond, you know, moment in the feed. How do we visually grab their attention and get them just to at least look at the post with focus, right? Then we talked about getting value and giving value, right? It's not about what we want to say to them. It's about what they want to hear. So how is our post addressing a topic that they care about and are paying attention to? Then we talk about invoking a premeditated action, right? This is where that conversion happens. So what's the terminology? What's the language used? And where do we point people to, right? And how does that link or that, you know, website or that follow directive speak to the value that you've given in the post? So you've talked about one thing. Does your link support that? Is that link an extension of the value? It should be, right? And now the last part of this, which is what I think is the most important, is empowering them to share. Because with sharing, that's where we have the opportunity for scaling success. I personally believe in the 10% model. I believe 10% of everybody that 10% of everybody that sees your post will care to click on it just to look at it. And then 10% of those people will actually follow through on the action, right? So 1 out of every 100 people is going to actually click your post. And I know that may seem a little pessimistic to some. I'd rather work at a disadvantage and, you know, under promise, over deliver to myself kind of thing. But I think it's a great way to look at it. And with scaling, by empowering people to share your post, you give yourself the opportunity to be seen by more people and increase those numbers. So then you can really start to measure, you know, what's working and what's not working. Now, the important thing about sharing is that people share for selfish reasons. And this is such an interesting concept. I didn't really think about this until I really started diving into social media work a few years ago. People share not inherently because they want to help the company out, but because they want to share something that represents how they want to be perceived, right? If you think about this example, when people were teenagers, right, they put up posters in their bedroom, on their bedroom walls, right? They hang up posters of bodybuilders, of models, of musicians, of faraway, you know, luxury places, whatever they wanted to show people that represents them, right? Well, today, our digital portfolio, our digital profiles are the very same thing. People are hesitant to share because they want to make sure what they share represents them, how they want to be perceived. It's that notion of, you know, social media is about putting your best foot forward, right? And it's very true. People do share for selfish reasons. But we can work with that. We can work with that because we know it's an expected nature of people. So the best way that I found to incorporate shareability is to use certain emotional appeals, right? If you think about the pictures, you know, in the teenager's bedroom, they put those on the walls because they make them feel something. And these are the 5 that actually I pulled from a book called Break Through the Noise by Tim Staples. He's the CEO of a company called Shareability. They're one of the world's largest digital marketing firms. They've worked with celebrities. They've worked with the biggest companies on the planet, and they have one of the highest engagement ratings consistently out of most companies, which, if you don't know, 1% conversion is actually 1% engagement rating is actually considered good in the large, big business world. 1% of the people you engage will do something. That's considered good. They were able to get up to 3%, right? So they kind of know what they're talking about and they have a lot of experience. But these are the 5 shareable emotions. And I share these because if you can incorporate these into your posts in a way that speaks to, you know, your consumer or your customer base, you can get them to share your post, or it'll be more likely that they'll share your post, right? So the first one is happiness, right? People want to share happiness because they want other people to think that they're happy individuals, right? So for example, if your company is a pet sitting startup, right, you could share a video of a dog singing with an auto-tune effect. I'm sure we've seen those kind of videos on YouTube, right? It's a happy video. It's funny. It makes people smile and laugh. That's a shareable emotion. People want to share that content because it reflects well on them. The second one is awe, right? It's that kind of like that wow factor, right? So an example, if you have a virtual reality company and you built a world that looks so real, like so lifelike, right? That it's just incredible. You give people that awe experience, people will share that. Or if perhaps you have a wellness startup, right, that shows a video that's very sentimental of maybe a depressed mother who finds joy in being with her son again, right? It's those tender moments that make people want to share because it shows that they have this sort of emotional appeal and that they want to represent themselves for their followers and their communities. Then there's empathy, right? Example, two stubborn coworkers. Here's a great example. Put an atheist and a diehard Christian in a room and have them talk about their differences, and then they find their common ground, right? It's that empathetical component. People will share that because they want other people to think that they are themselves empathetical. Curiosity, this is a great one, right? Example is discovering something never thought possible through your product, right? What's a curious component that your business solves? Like if your business is challenging a dogma, right, the status quo, what's curious about that? You know, what would people pay attention to that would make them want to say, oh, you know what? I'm curious about this and I want to share it because I want to show other people that I have a curiosity, right? That's the mindset we have to be in when writing these types of posts. And then the last one, this is the oldest type of viral content you can find on the internet. It's the surprise content, right? So those jump scare videos or some kind of excitement. I came up with this idea, you know, if for example, somebody is allergic to a certain kind of food and you, or excuse me, sorry, if somebody's 100% vegan, let's just say, right? And you blindfold them and then you feed them a cupcake, you know, that normally wouldn't be vegan, but it's a vegan startup, vegan cupcake startup, right? Filming that interaction of them taking off the blindfold and being shocked by, you know, the fact that they just ate that. That kind of content is exciting and it makes people want to share it. And again, if you can incorporate these into your posts, you can improve the chances of having people share it. So the tip is ask yourself if the copy in your post is invoking one of these shareable emotions. And again, it comes down to understanding your particular community. What is it that your community cares about, and how can you incorporate these emotions into those posts? Because again, people share for selfish reasons. You got to give people something that will make them look good to others. So you have to understand the psychology of what they are thinking about. Right? What do they want to share? Because, you know, the people that follow their accounts, you know, are people like their mother, father, uncle, aunt, school teacher, professors. You know, people are thinking about what will people see on my page. You know, what will I share, and what does that say about me? Right? So incorporate the emotional stimulants when appropriate to encourage that kind of sharing. And biggest advice I have for this is to just take off your CEO hat, take off your, you know, marketing hat, and just step into the role of your customer, right? Really try to understand what is it that they value, what do they care about, right? And what would they want to share? Like, why would they want to share your post? That's a question you should ask yourself. And if there's no clear answer, then maybe there's opportunity to revise it to make it something that makes people want to share it, right? And part of that comes down to content creation too, right? Are your visuals engaging? Do they inspire people? Do they give any of these emotional appeals? Or you can do it just through text, right? If you have a curious fact that you've discovered through your startup, you can illustrate that through just copy, right? So take off the hat and think about those moments. Okay, and this is our last group breakout. I want you guys to go back to the tables. I'm going to mingle around, but I want you guys to ask the question and share with each other, what kind of posts do you personally share and don't share on social media? You know, take off the hat of being the CEO or the marketing person or whatever, and just ask the question of, you know, what would I share and why wouldn't I share something else, right? And then talk about what is the intrinsic nature of your target audience, right? What do they care about? What do they want to share on their personal feeds? How do they wish to appear to others? And then how can you give them that fodder? How can you give them that material to feed their perfect little premeditated persona, right? So talk about that in the group, and I'll be cycling to the tables as well. John? Okay, thank you guys. Hope you're all doing well. Let me just start the screen again. Okay, so hopefully you guys had a chance to really just step out of the realm of being that business owner or that CEO or that marketing person and think about the customer, right? What do they want to share? What matters to them? Because ultimately, we want people to feel confident sharing your product or your service or your post. So that's the 1 second funnel. So here's what we've done, right? We started from the top and we said, how do we get people's visual attention? How do we stand out from the noise when somebody's scrolling through the feed? How do we get their attention in that millisecond moment? Then we talked about how to deliver immediate and clear value. And again, it's not what you want to say to them, it's what they're paying attention to. So how do you speak to those values? Then we talked about how to get a premeditated reaction, right? So this is where that conversion happens. What is the goal of your post? Is it for somebody to tune into something, to sign up for something, to provide feedback, or maybe just to follow a page, right? And how does that speak to the value? And then lastly, we talked about incorporating emotional appeal to get people to share. Because again, people want to share things that make them look good to others. And so how do you incorporate those 5 emotions into your post? It comes down to understanding your community and figuring out how to incorporate that messaging for them. So that's the overview of the funnel. Now I want to go through quickly just a few tips and strategies that I found for better conversions. These are things that I do in my businesses that help me get better conversion rates. And some of them may be obvious, but some of them maybe not. And of course, our good friend Michael Scott is always there by our side along the way. So let's go through these real quick. And then after this, we'll do the Q&As and I'll be sharing the links to the template and such. So the first one, I already kind of talked about this, but I wanted to go into more depth on it. It's the importance of fitting things above the fold. Again, above the fold is what appears in the first part of your website, your newsletter, your social media post, before there's any required action to read more. So an example on the left side, there's 2 pictures, one above each other. That's from my blog. Now, the top photo is what my blog would load if you clicked it before I told it where the fold was, because I had to go in and actually manually say, this is what I want people to see when they click on my link. That top image gives no value. It's just a picture and the logo and the little directory section at the top, right? If we're talking about optimizing ourselves for giving value as quickly as possible, that doesn't do it, because then people have to scroll down to read more, which some will argue people will do. But if we're talking about optimization, it's not the best way to do it. The image on the bottom is now where the post goes. So now when you click my link, it'll take you to that image. That is what will appear in your screen first. And that immediately speaks to value, because it tells you exactly what you're going to receive in the article. And it even dives straight into it and gives you the opportunity to share through the social media links, right? So it's important to put all of your important stuff up front above the fold. On the right side, above and below the text, there are 2 examples from Instagram. Same thing, right? What you post, it's going to be cut off, and there's going to be the option to click more, right? And you want the important context, the value to be put above that fold so that people are inspired and want to actually click that button to read more of the post. So do this in all of your posts, right? Go through your accounts and look at what your posts are looking like on all the social platforms and see if it is set up to deliver value first. It's also very relevant that people read left to right, at least in English, right? And people are going to just start at the top. They're going to start reading from the beginning. So what can you do to get the important stuff right at the beginning of your post? The second tip that I have for improving conversion rates and also just building a community in general is to give something for free on the side. I do this with my blog all the time, but it's a great way to build your community's attention if you can give them supplemental material that still gives them value. So with my blog, for example, obviously we write and we post a lot of articles, right? A lot of links to how to, improve your marketing, how to write SEO, how to get a remote job, right? Very technical types of articles. But we also do what's called The More You Know. And every single day at 12 p.m. Pacific time, we post an interesting picture with a caption about what is in the picture, purely for the purposes of giving our community something free to enjoy, right? It's a great way to build a community because it gets people to remember that we do this. So every day, you know, at 12 o'clock, we have people that are commenting or engaging with the post. And it also, it gives them value because it's still in touch with what it is that we're offering, because our blog is focused on giving people value, on helping people learn more things about their business or about the world or about themselves, right? And this inspires people to come back and digest more of your content. So think about if there's something that you can offer on the side, right? And you know, if you have a very technical type of business, like if you maybe work in finance, for example, right? And you're like, I don't know what I can give away for free. I can't give away money, which, you know, maybe you could, but maybe not. Maybe there are some interesting facts about finance that you can share with your followers to build that knowledge sphere, to build that community, because your people are paying attention to certain topics. You know, what are you sharing in addition to your primary content that gives them more value? So give something for free on the side. It's a great way to just build a community and increase conversions. Then another tip, command the most real estate in your feed. When people are scrolling through feeds, this goes back to that visual component of the 1 second funnel we talked about. You want your posts to command real estate. You want, when people are scrolling, you want to make sure that you get as much of their screen time as possible. The screenshot here on the left is from Twitter, from America's Navy. And if you look at it, the entire post is my feed. Like from the top to the bottom, at that moment, all I can see is content from them. Versus if I just tweeted a one-line message with a link, it would be, you know, a third of that. And there would be a bunch of other posts in the same window on my phone, right? So another great tip to improve conversion rates is to just make sure your posts are commanding real estate, right? So some ways to do that, you know, use links, use hashtags, use paragraph spacing. Look at the example on the left, right? They indent and they have a clear space between the messages, right? You can also have comments. Comments sometimes take up part of the feed as well. So videos, make sure the videos are optimized for the social media platform you're on. Instagram, a square video will generally command more attention because it takes up more of the feed. So command the most real estate possible. And then lastly, this may be a broken record to some, but I still think it's important to talk about. Read the room of different social media networks, right? In the tables I was going around, we talked about how LinkedIn is great for some B2B type businesses, right? And that's very true because that's more of a professional network. The people on there are the CEOs, they're the business owners that are looking to take their businesses to the next level. Twitter, a lot more casual, but there's a lot more common users. So in terms of customers, Twitter may be better for your company, right? Short form posts, right? Twitter is capped at 240 characters. So you have to keep your message concise. Facebook is big for community engagements. Facebook actually came out and said that they prioritize content that is meant to get a reaction from the community, asking the community questions. I know Facebook and LinkedIn both actually have algorithms that say if your post gets X amount of engagement within the first X amount of time, we're going to show it to more people because we consider it to be a trending type of post, right? So it's all about understanding the social platform you're on. And then Instagram, of course, is for visually appealing content. So the examples in the image are from VR Ulysses. Tom Malone is a member of Seattle Angel too. I don't know if he's here today, but the top post is a post he made on his personal LinkedIn from the perspective of the CEO of the company. He wrote this lengthy article that people can read because people there are looking for a professional type of engagement, right? Versus the image below, that's on the Ulysses page on Twitter, and we made it more fun, more engaging. We used some hashtags and we used images to get people to want to look at it from a very much more casual perspective, right? They're not inherently business professionals. They could be, but most likely they're people that are just browsing through the feed and looking up virtual reality topics, right? So read the room of different social media networks, and there's a ton of them out there too. Okay, well, that's pretty much all I have for the content. I mean, look at we went through the 1 second funnel. We talked about how to get people's attention, how to give them value, how to get that conversion funnel set up, and then how to get them to share. And then I went through a few of the tips and strategies that I found to be effective for consistent, engagement and conversions on the posts that I make. So yes, I have a free posting template / guide that I created. It's basically like a summarized version of this presentation that almost works like a Mad Lib, where you read through it and it says, oh, does your post include this? Yes or no? And then you can make sure it has it. Again, the intent is to help you optimize your posts for better conversions. And I also have a free feedback and promotional form. I'm going to drop these into the chat in just a moment when I turn off my present mode. If I encourage you to take this guide, make a post on your platform, and then share it with me. The feedback form, you can just include the URL to your post. I will go and I will look at the post. I will give you feedback about it. I'll email you back. And I will also repost that post on our blog page, right? To give it just some additional promotional value, but also just to help you out and give you that feedback. So I'm gonna, now we can go ahead and go into the Q&A. Again, my website down there is at the bottom, and then my social media handles as well. I'm going to put this into the chat here. I'm going to turn this off.
So while Alex is working on that, if you want to come on stage, raise your hand, and then we'll be able to see that in the participants. And perhaps, Alex, you could go through the few questions that are there and just address those. I think those are quick things to answer.
Yeah, sure. I can, I guess I'll start at the top. But yeah, if anybody wants to come up, I'm happy to talk about, your particular business or startup and answer a couple questions that you may have. Let's see. Do I have a favorite framework for the text sentence to state value? It depends. I think it depends on a couple things. It depends on the social platform, because there are limitations we have to keep in mind, right? On Twitter, again, you only get 240 characters, so you can't have a long form framework for a post. You have to keep it concise. LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, absolutely you can extend your copy, but I think the important thing is to get that value up front. So in general, I try to keep all the important stuff in the first 60 to 90 characters of every post, and then after that I can provide supplemental value and get people to click on a link or wherever they can get more of that material. I don't see anything about buy. Is that bad for social media? Scott, no, that was, I just didn't put that as an example. Again, it comes down to what your particular industry is and what your community is paying attention to. If you feel confident that you can tell your followers that they need to buy something, then say it, absolutely. But it comes down to understanding what terminology they use and what will or maybe won't resonate with them. That was very helpful. John, it was great to see you. Thank you again. Hopefully we can connect later. Scott, can we make the feedback change on our post before you repost it? Sure, absolutely. Well, depends on the platform, right? So, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, you can make changes to a post after it's made. Twitter, you can't. So, you can certainly delete the post and make a new one if that is easier for you. But once I provide the feedback, I'm happy to wait for you to make a change and then I can repost it. I think that was all the questions in the chat. If anybody wanted to come up and have a powwow with me.
Yeah, so if anybody has questions, feel free to post to the chat or raise your hand and we'll bring you up on stage and we can chat and engage with that.
And I posted, oh, sorry, go ahead, John.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say I posted the full, the links to the article. I also posted a link to the guide, which is just a direct WeTransfer downloads. It's just a PDF file. And then I also posted a link to the feedback form where you can submit your post, and then I will get back to you via email.
So Ben just posted a question.
Sure, yeah, Ben, is there a way within the IG framework to put the words above the photo like on Twitter? Put the words above the photo? How do you mean? So like, on Instagram, there's going to be the actual photo itself and the caption goes below it. Are you saying, is there a way to put a caption above the image? I'm not sure the question there. You can absolutely, okay. Yeah, so there isn't inherently a way to do that, but you can put text in the image itself. So depending on if you post on your story, you can actually do it within the app. You can write a caption and put it in the actual story post. On the image or just right above it, or in the Instagram post in your actual on your actual account, you can make a custom graphic that has text in it. But there's not a way to put words above a photo like on Twitter. I get what you're saying though. Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of reversed. Yeah, totally. You're welcome. Is there an ideal post frequency for each platform? Oh, hey, Scott, how's it going?
Good. I just accepted. Sorry.
No, no worries. Do you have a question, or is this just
Yeah,
a recording?
no question. Well, thank you for this. This has been very helpful. I had talked about it with our table group. I'm one of my businesses. I'm an author of children's books, and I had run a Facebook ad, and I had like 700 views, 19 click-throughs, and 0 sales. My question, which was about the click-throughs, was about 2.5%. So I think that was a little bit in line with what you had said your engagement.
It depends. It scales. It scales, right? Because for lower counts, it's easier to get higher engagements, right? I mean, if you contact 5 people and 2 of them respond, that's what, like 30% engagement. That's really, really good. But yeah, big enterprises, like when they have millions of people, typically 1% is what they look for.
Yeah, so that was really my question. Is I really just paid $12. Like, where do you go? Like, what is your limit to say that I'm going to get a very good, a decent test to see if this post is working?
Yeah, well, I mean, again, it depends on how many people you reach, how much money you spend, and which platform you engage. I personally come from sort of a grassroots approach where I don't personally believe in a lot of boosted advertisements. I think there's a lot of value you can get from just building a community and encouraging them to share, which is why I got that whole slide section about shareability. But in turn, sometimes ads can work and they can help with general engagement. Creating a lot of different demographics for A/B testing is really important. So going in, I'm sure when you created your ad, you got to select, who your target audience was, you selected the age range, stuff like that. A lot of testing there is going to be important for sure. A lot of testing with different groups. And part of that too is I'm assuming there's an assumption about who you think your customer is. But in my experience, that's not always the case, right? It's not always the truth until you really get out in the market and really have people start buying, which maybe you already have people buying. I'm not 100% sure. But in general, just A/B test is probably the best way to do it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, hopefully that answered the question. John, is there an ideal post frequency for each platform? Let's see, John, time of day and week can be important as well with some variability based on audience. Absolutely. It really comes down to how engaged your community is. I will say that, an account with very few followers that spams every single day, 5 or 10 times a day, not a good move because it's going to be annoying for people and it's going to look bad because nobody's engaging with anything. But if you look at, massive companies like TechCrunch, right? They post 10, 15 blog posts a day, but they also have, 2 or 3 million followers and each post gets 80 or 90 likes and, some engagements, right? So it all comes with scale. I think up front, especially for a startup, it's about getting value or giving that value up front and connecting with people directly. So, I think Ben mentioned, or somebody mentioned in one of the tables that a lot of their followers right now are their friends and family. So good. That's so great because they're people that will automatically support you and they will, hopefully they understand what you stand for and you can actually give value to them up front versus if you don't have anybody that understands what you're doing, then, they maybe won't pay attention to the value right away. So it takes time, but ideal posting frequency, it varies by platform for sure. And understand time zones too. Timing is important. If all your customers are in the US or all your intended target audiences in the US, when are they most engaged? There are tons of studies done online. You also have within each social media platform an analytics page where you can go in and see when are people coming across your channel, right? When are people looking at your posts? And you can form it off of that. And again, I'm harping again on the shareability aspect because it's kind of hard to get clear data if you don't have a lot of engagement up front, right? So you need to be able to get this kind of fire going by getting people to share your content so that once you have enough analytics information, then you can start to make more educated decisions. I hope I don't talk too fast. Yeah, you're welcome, John.
No, I think you're doing great. Are there any more questions? Oh, I see a hand up. Hold on a sec. I'll bring them up.
Jamie.
Hi, Alex. It's Jami.
Jami. Hi, Jami.
Hi.
Sorry, I said that wrong.
No, it's okay. I get that all the time. So I'm working with a B2B startup, and we've just started to work on our LinkedIn. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to kind of go over that 150 follower hurdle, and we're still kind of getting up to that number. You mentioned how some of the effective posts are either empathetic or they appeal to happiness, or there were other ones. Right now, we've been sharing a lot of posts on the industry. Do you think it'd be worth sharing more thought leadership that would resonate with those values to try to get more followers? Because we also don't want to come off as, we don't know anything, connect with whoever's following us.
Sure, absolutely. Well, again, it comes down to understanding what your customer or what your target audience is paying attention to, right? So if you're selling B2B, you're selling to other business owners, right? So what do they care about? What are they paying attention to, right? Is there an emotion that they're more likely going to want to share? Now, are they, hopefully you don't want to engage competitors, because competitors won't want to share your content, right? Because they're like, screw these guys. But if you can understand what the business owners are looking for and what their values are, what are they talking about? Study them, look at the groups that they are engaging, and what are the questions that they're talking about, the topics, and then start talking about that in your post. So I think thought leadership is absolutely great, especially if your business solves a problem that particular business type is experiencing. Thought leadership is the way to go, because again, you're not selling a product, you're leading them to salvation, right? So understanding what their values are and what they're looking to solve will give you kind of that step forward in building that thought leadership and then building that community and followers as well.
Okay.
That makes sense? Did I explain that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. I kind of rip when I talk, so if it's cluttered, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Thank you.
Of course. I think there's one more person here who wants to come up. Oh, I thought there was. I'll just do a quick plug too for the Seattle Angel Open Coffee. Every Tuesday at 8:30 a.m. Pacific time. It's a great chance it's a lot less formal than this. We do it over Zoom. We just casually talk about any business related venture, right? If you're a startup, how do you get customers? How do you get investing, right? You can also find really great people there. You can find business partners, maybe even find customers there. So that's just my plug. I know John put the link in. Hi, Ree, how's it going?
Good. Quick, I just wanted to get clarification. There's such a big hoopla about reels versus videos, and I can't on Instagram, and I really can't seem to figure out what the difference is, because we've been using video for a while now.
Sure.
And all of a sudden there's this big push for reels.
Yeah, so, I love reels.
Oh, you do?
When I do, yeah. When you say video, are you talking about the video you post actually on your Instagram account and it shows up like on your timeline and you click like that little plus button at the bottom of your phone?
Yeah, so you could do real-time video, or you could upload any video clips that you have into your feed, and you could do the same thing for the stories. So, and with the reels, it seems to do the same thing. So
so they just rolled out reels like last week or a week and a half ago. It's sort of a response to the upcoming shutdown of TikTok. If anyone uses TikTok, it's a short 15-second video that you create, and it works. The main difference about reels versus like a post on your feed, though, is that it's a whole different like algorithm that's they're trying to get people to use this discovery page on the Instagram app, right? Because before it wasn't really that popular of a network to use the discovery page. A Reels basically just puts you in this circuit of new discoverability, and your post will get shown to people as they swipe through videos. So it's just like a new format on the platform. My suggestion is use Reels, because just inherently any kind of new feature or technology is going to be ripe for opportunity up front. So use it just for that fact alone. But you can post a video on Reels and also choose to post it on your actual timeline and on your story as well. So there's no reason why you can't do all three at the same exact time and then, reap results from this new option now from Reels. Did that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. It's the same thing as a video, except it's a new platform within Instagram is the bottom line, right?
Essentially, because right now, the way that Instagram works, most people only go to their homepage and swipe through the people that they follow. That's how they find content, is from the people that they're already following. The discovery page on Instagram, for years, they've been trying to make that a place you can go to find new people that you don't already follow, right? Because your feed is only going to be who you follow. But the discovery page is meant to give you content from around the world based on things like hashtags, popularity. That wasn't doing well for them. Like that discovery page was not a very good business move for them in the past years. They incorporated Reels now because they're trying to bring over this culture of TikTok type of consumption, which if you ever use TikTok, you can just swipe video after video of people that you have no idea who they are, brand new content from people all around the world, and their algorithm suggests videos based on what they think you like. Reels is trying to do that same thing. So in terms of discoverability and the amount of attention that Reels has right now, I think it's a great opportunity to get into it.
Okay.
I hope
Great.
that makes sense.
Yeah, it did. Thank you very much.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Let's see here. Very helpful. Open Coffee. Ben, yeah, absolutely. You can put your links in there if you'd like. Yeah. So does anybody else have any other questions or anything? Feel free to contact me too at a later time. I'll be going through the forms or through the form for feedback probably tomorrow. I want to give people some time to work through the content and make something that they think is good, and then I'll give my feedback on it.
So one of the things that this remote platform does is it allows you to update your profile in the upper right corner, and you put your LinkedIn, Facebook, and website, as well as a calendar booking system. And having done that once, the next time you come in, it's still there. And so you can find people and book things. Like if you click on my icon, whatever table I'm at, you can find my LinkedIn and find my booking to have a meeting. And I know that Alex did the same thing, so you can go in and connect with us. So we'll be around for the next 10 minutes and we'll mingle. And thanks for coming. Don't forget, our next workshop is next Tuesday. And so we'll talk about due diligence then. Thank you so much, Alex. I thought that was great.
Thanks all. Yeah, it was fun.